Yo, what is good, fam? If you're like me, juggling Diablo 4 with work, family, and real life, you don't have 8 hours a day to grind Chaos Rifts endlessly. But guess what? You don't have to. Today I'm dropping the HARAMBAEMEHA Payback Spiritborn build. It's casual friendly, easy to gear, and absolutely shreds all Torment 4 content, even with just a few Chaos uniques. You literally go Super Saiyan in Diablo 4, and I couldn't think of a better build and a better way to introduce this build to you. So let's break down our main abilities in Chapter 1. This is your bread and butter loot, smooth, high damage, and satisfying AF. Let's start off with Payback, our first main ability. This is our burst damage and our front-loaded HARAMBAEMEHA. And then to follow that up, we have Thunderspike. This is strictly for movement and vulnerable application. Speed and control here is our best friend. And then we have the Protector to follow that up with an AoE pull, just like Vortex, and some bananas overpower damage. Next, we have Armored Hide. This gives us an unstoppable proc and provides some great guerrilla synergies. Whenever we get CC'd, we simply use this just to get out of jail free. Then we have Toxic Skin for some Thorn shenanigans. And then we have Counterattack for a crit damage multiplier. And just a quick note here too, Payback scales with Thorn's damage, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. So let's shift over to our main aspects here with Chapter 2. On our first ring here, we have the aspect of Bristling Vengeance. This is what allows Payback to become a Thorns loaded ball of fun. Next, we have the aspect of the Moonrise to give us increased attack speed. You can also go the aspect of adaptability if you want more damage. And as for our amulet, we're going the aspect of Redirected Force. This gives us a huge critical strike damage multiplier. Now let's move over to our Spirit Halls here, where we have the Eagle and Jaguar. The Eagle Spirit Hall will allow us to apply Vulnerable with all of our skills because they become Eagle skills. And as for the Jaguar, this simply synergizes so well with the unique that we're going, and I'll talk more about that later. However, it does increase our maximum ferocity stacks, which gives us attack speed. So that does it for the Spirit Halls. Let's jump over to the Chaos Unique setup and prep next in Chapter 4. Let's talk about the most important unique that we have here is the Rod of Kepeleke. This will allow Payback to become a basic skill. And we also get a damage multiplier based on how much resource we spend. This is how we're able to spam Payback so freely. Now, if you can get the Chaos Unique version of the Rod of Kepeleke, that's the best case scenario because you free up your two-handed weapon slot. And with the freed up two-handed weapon slot, we get more damage aspects and more tempering. Now on to our next unique here, we have the Harmony of Ebewaka. This enables us to have that tri-spirit scaling, as I mentioned in the previous section. And the Harmony of Ebewaka gives us a damage multiplier based on the spirit types that our ability has. And with our Spirit Halls arranged the way they are, we have a Gorilla, Jaguar, and Eagle type on Payback. So we get the trifecta damage multiplier. Next we have the Hesha Kesungi. I still can't say that right. It transforms the Protector into a Spirit Bomb avatar, letting you cast it from a range while pulling enemies together like our Vortex ability. And we also get a sweet damage multiplier to Gorilla skills. Now the Chaos Uniques I suggest you get first are the Sepizentic and the Fist of Fate. And you can have these Chaos Uniques in any slot. This will help you see that damage scaling and power from Torment 3 to Torment 4. There's also something that I want you guys to notice here, that this build isn't fully finished, and that was intentional. It shows you that you could still crush endgame content even without every Chaos Unique or tons of playtime. There's plenty of room for this build to grow to Super Saiyan Blue power potential, if you know what I mean. Also, Payback scales with Thorn's damage, so if you want to have some meme type of build, you can go Razorplate. However, if you're going this build and Razorplate, you severely lack survivability. But take on the challenge if you feel so. Now, if you want the ideal Chaos Unique setup, this is how it goes. I'd have the Rod of Kepeleke on our helmet piece as a Chaos Unique. As for the chest piece, I would keep it the same with the SWC. As for the gloves, I'd have Sepizentic. And on the pants, I would have the Hesha Kesungi. And then as for the boots, I would have Fist of Fate. I want to reiterate here, having the two-handed weapon slot open is a huge damage increase. So that does it for Chapter 4. Let's move on to Chapter 5 next. Now, Chapter 5 is all about the Mobalytics Planner, the Paragon board, and our key passives. And as for the planner, again, we have the blaster version of the build, the casual version of the build, and the leveling version of the build. And I highly suggest you go over to Mobalytics just to simply learn how to use the build planner as a tool. And it's also a condensed version of everything we talked about in the video today. But let's go to the Paragon board next. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to go over all the glyphs first and then the boards respectively. And as for our first glyph here, we have the Spirit Glyph, which is simply just a critical strike damage multiplier. Moving up to the second board here, we have Canny, which gives us a damage multiplier to non-physical damage. Then moving over to Revenge, it gives us a damage multiplier every time that we deal Thorns damage with Payback. And then we have Headhunter, which gives us a damage multiplier to Elites. And finally, we have Fitness, which gives us resource regeneration and another critical strike damage multiplier. Now, as for the boards, we're going Convergence for an elemental damage multiplier. And then our third board here is Viscous Shield for a damage multiplier when we have Barrier. And then we have our fourth board here, which is Sapping, which gives us a damage multiplier for every type of ability that we use based on the spirit type, if that makes sense. So essentially we're getting a 60 times multiplier with the Harmony of Ebewaka, and we're also getting some resource regeneration. And then for the final board, we're going Revealing to give us a chance to knock down vulnerable enemies and to get another 60 times damage multiplier. And for all the sweats out there that are just like me, you can swap out the Convergence board and simply go Spiny Skin and the Hubris Glyph. These both scale with Thorns damage, and again, Payback scales with Thorns damage. Try it out. Now let's go over the key passives here. I'm going to scroll real slow so you guys can see all the passive skills and how I invested them. Pause the screen if you'd like. And we're going down to our key passive. Now, as for the key passive, you can go 2 different key passives for this build. You can go Prodigy's Temple, or you can go Vital Strikes. I found Vital Strikes was really useful when I wanted to do pit pushing, bossing, or leveling. Whereas Prodigy's Temple came in handy when I was farming Infernal Hordes and Hell Tides. Prodigy's Temple gives us a constant uptime on the Protector. And because of that Vortex-like ability, it's super useful when farming. Alright, so that does it for the Mobalytics Planner, the key passives, and the Paragon board. Let's move over to Chapter 6 with the Gems and Runes next. Now, as for the Gems and Runes, I'm going to keep this simple. In our weapon, we're simply going Emerald for critical strike damage. Then in our armor, we're going Amethyst for barrier generation. And then in our amulet and our rings, we're simply going the gem where we need resistance the most. As for our runes here, we're going Pox Sand, so that every time that we're spending our resource, we're getting a guaranteed critical strike and overpower proc. And then moving up, we're going Neo Q to give us Earth and Bulwark every time that we avoid damage, which is all the time. And Earth and Bulwark gives us barrier. Now let's go over to the little homies here in Chapter 7 for the Mercenaries. As for our hired mercenary, we're going Subal for that critical strike damage multiplier. And then for the reinforcement, we're going Varanya, so that every time that we're using payback, we get increased attack speed. Now moving over to Chapter 8, we're going over the Chaos perks. And the unique Chaos perk that we're going is Brawn over Brains for a fat damage multiplier to overpower damage, increased healing received, and increased maximum life. Then we're going Alacrity to give us increased attack speed to our basic skills like Thunderspike and Payback. And we're also getting that huge uptime on Evade with Thunderspike. Moving over to the right, we're going Combined Strikes. This gives Payback a damage multiplier and increases its AoE. And then moving up to our Legendary Chaos perk here, we're going Back Off for a huge 200 times damage multiplier. That's why in the intro, you see me casting Payback from afar when I'm doing the boss runs. At maximum distance, we get maximum damage. Now moving on to Chapter 9, we're going over the Tempering and Masterworking. For our first temper here, we want potency damage on our amulet and our rings. And if you're lucky enough to have the two-handed weapon slot open, you want the chance for Payback to deal double damage. As a secondary temper, you want the Protector cooldown. I couldn't get on my amulet, I simply tried, I rerolled, and it didn't work, and that's the nature of tempering. However, for the Masterworking, you want that triple crit on potency damage on the amulet and rings. And again, if you have the two-handed weapon slot open, you want that triple crit on Payback has the chance to deal double damage. So that was Chapter 9, and we're moving over to Chapter 10 here with the gameplay showcase in the pit. Now I want to reiterate here, guys, I'm a huge Dragon Ball Z fan. Absolutely love it. I have so much fun playing this build because of the nostalgia involved. So we're going to a pit tier 70 just to keep things light and fun, but we should be able to push this in 2.5-3 minutes. Nice. So a good tactic here is to kind of like aggro a big group, pull them together, and then drop the Protector, and then from afar, just launch. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of one of the tactics you can use. You can also just kind of like jump with Evade and get out of there as soon as possible. Just make sure you're spacing yourself decently enough to get that back off proc doing its damage. And just, you know, aggro room, bring them all together, and what do you get? Big damage. And for everyone wondering, I'm doing the Vital Strikes version of the build. We're not farming, so I'm not running Prodigy's Tempo. I mean, you could run it too if you like. It's not a big deal. I missed it there. Alright, let's see if we can clap the boss in 9 seconds. Yep, worked perfectly. Yeah, so if you guys want to build with Blaster Potential, the HARAMBAEMEHA build is the one for you. It's super fun to play, it's easy to pick up, and you can literally play it with 2 Chaos Uniques. Comment below if you guys think the Chaos Unique should stick around for Season 11, or they should introduce something like Kanai's Cube from Diablo 3. Always remember to stay safe out there, Wanderers. I'm your boy Jadiro, sign out for now. Peace!